My name is Aoife Soden, and I'm an Irish glass artist. But I grew up in Australia and Papua New Guinea. Uh, I did take my glass education in Ireland. I actually went back to art college to pursue a career in printing, which is what I was sure I wanted to do when I started. But after a few months, I was a little bit concerned with the 2D aspect of printing. And I had a very good tutor who suggested that maybe I was in the wrong department and I should go and explore elsewhere. So I was tossing up between going to sculpture, and I had the opportunity to go and try out the glass department in the National College of Art and Design in Dublin. I had never tried glass before. I hadn't really been exposed to glass before then, other than as glass design. But I was so impressed that I knew immediately that that's what I wanted to do. And I switched courses, and I haven't looked back since. So it was an unexpected turn, but definitely one I'm glad I took.
And today, what techniques do you work with?
I work mainly with blown glass and hot sculpted glass. So I design both functional glass products, which I make under my own name, Aoife Soden Glass, and then I also make unique glass sculptures. If I had the opportunity and the finances, I would make unique sculptures all of the time. But I also find that it's really nice to make functional work. I think that finding your techniques, making functional pieces and repeating processes actually helps to feed into making new sculptural pieces and bringing new techniques into your sculptural pieces and vice versa. So although initially I would have said I didn't necessarily want to start off making as much functional work as I probably do now, I actually have become quite happy that that's the way it works out. It's also sometimes really nice when you're having a bit of an artistic slump to simply go into the hot shop and say, okay, today I have to make 60 glasses, and get back into the making zone and actually just put your head back into the game. So yeah, I really appreciate having both the functional and also the artistic as part of my practice.
And in your sculptures, do you incorporate other materials or mediums? And what is the outcome?
I do, not as much as I probably should, but I have also used some other glass processes, and I have also used film work. I have one or two pieces which have focused on film work where the glass has simply been the medium for portraying the film, and that's something that I'm hoping to look into further. I think that at times it can be a little daunting simply because technology is moving at such a speed these days that the minute you master something new, it's already almost obsolete, and there's something else coming along. So I think that I have not maybe delved as much into that as possible. And I also think with glass that it really is a material where you have to make a decision whether you're going to place some of your focus on honing your glass skills and becoming really competent at your trade, at actually the art of making, or whether glass is simply the vessel that you use or the material that you use to explore your ideas. And for me, it's always been really important that not only is glass the material that I use to explore my ideas, but also that I explore the ways that you can use glass and technique with glass. And I really enjoy the process aspect of glass. So I have not delved into using other materials as much as I could have. I also like to keep my sculptures very simple. So when I'm creating a piece that's a set of lungs, usually there's a slight twist to it or there's something different about it. But ultimately, I want them to stand alone as simple pieces that people can reflect with and think about. And I don't necessarily want to add too many extra components to it. That said, lockdown's making me think twice about that because I have no access to glass at the moment. So maybe I have to stretch a little further.
And what is the main source of inspiration for your designs?
My source of inspiration is myself and the close experiences of those around me. I'm coming probably from having a very deep interest in biology and human body mechanics. I think that the human body is just an amazing fine-tuned machine And I also believe that in modern society, we have forgotten that. So I think that I take a sociological viewpoint in presenting the work that I do, looking at how we have forgotten that our bodies need care, forgotten that our bodies have a level of capability that when you push beyond that and when you keep pushing beyond that, that you're actually causing yourself harm. And both physically and also in the relationships you have with other people. I think I spent quite a bit of time early on when I was started making pieces looking at the differences between Western medicine and more traditional medicine. So in more traditional medicines, it's very common to look at your symptoms as a whole and look at how your body is working overall. Whereas in Western medicine, we tend to focus on what is the specific point of problem and how can we create something which fixes that quickly. The things that are wrong with you psychologically, mentally, physically, emotionally, they affect the way your body works. And we've become very good at ignoring those signals and ignoring those symptoms. So I think for me, that's been a big inspiration. I'm quite an anxious person and a highly strung person. It's taken me a long time to learn that about myself. And the way I interact with the world sometimes that plays a part in it. And I think that's relevant for a lot of people where we're switched on 24/7 these days. So we're constantly connected, be it by phone, by email, by Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat. And it's very difficult for us to keep functioning for our bodies to keep functioning at an optimum level if we never give it the appropriate time to rest and relax. And so that, I guess it's commenting on that aspect of the world has been something which has been important for me. Yeah.
How do you interpret those pressing issues of our contemporaneity of our society in your artistic practice?
I've looked specifically at, within my art practice, at sculpting body organs where you can see some of the damage that has happened to those body organs. And they act as a metaphor for a lot of the catchphrases that we use. So I come from two backgrounds which have not maybe had the best reputation for being good at talking about mental health issues or body issues. And we have these little catchphrases that people will use when people are unwell. So I've taken a lot of those and interpreted them into being objects. In more recent work, I started looking at this idea where people talk about having a weight on their shoulder. So the ideas of balance and of weight within our internal functioning, within our bodies. And I used a lot of nautical references to kind of portray those ideas of balance and of weight. So anchors and buoys and different objects which would either represent an idea of floating or lifting, or an idea of sinking and weight. So that's a lot of the more recent work that I've been doing has used those aspects, along with the inclusion of body organs in different forms and different shapes and sizes and colors. So yeah.
Yes, like your piece from the previous edition of the Biennale, the test of buoyancy.
Yes, yeah. So that one is that piece is an example where it has a buoy and it also has the heart being weighed down. And we have this idea, we talk about having a weight on our heart, maybe when we're emotionally hurting or when we're just exhausted or physically unable to keep going. And so what is that weight? How do we describe it? I think a lot of things that happen within our bodies are very difficult to describe. And for me, that's also an inspiration. How do we represent these things that we find so difficult to describe to someone? If you're suffering from someone and you go to a professional, a doctor or something, how do you actually describe the symptoms you're having? Because they can be related to so many different things. So, yeah.
And do you have a piece you'd like to show us or tell us about?
I have a few here. So lockdown has done strange things to me. So I don't have access to very many studios at the moment. But I did have the chance to start making some pieces before lockdown. So I've got a few different pieces on the go. I've got another set of lungs that I'm currently working on, and these we're using, so this is going to be a beautiful anchor set of lungs. So these are using some cup casing. So I'm adding a little bit of color, which I usually do quite in a limited way in terms of the body organs. But these ones are adding a little bit of color, so I'm going to see how that goes. And then I've also been working on a series of pieces, which I've been making a lot of pieces for. I think this is actually an experience which has been quite common for people during this period. I've been making a lot of pieces for it. I haven't quite worked out how it's going to go together yet. So I've been making a lot of hands. So I've got a little baby hands here, and in different poses. And actually, these pieces are working with the idea of touch, and which I think is something that most people have really been missing out on during this lockdown period, whether it's a hug for emotional support or love, or a lot of my pieces go back to my days working as a primary school teacher, and how kids explain things, because I think it's children have a magical way of explaining things in a very uncomplicated way. So children often, with those that they are close to, they will give gifts. So this little guy here is going to be giving the lovely gift of a little feather. The feather has to be ground to fit in there, the way a small child would give you that gift. And these are things that we quite often maybe pass off as, or they don't have as much meaning as they would have in the current times, because people can't meet and they can't see their grandkids, or they're meeting through glass, or they're meeting through other barriers, whether it's a screen or other various things. So I think that's where this has come out of, different hands with different gifts. There's also some that will have little tiny body organs. So I still very much love making hearts and lungs and things like that. So I've made one piece like this before, and at the moment I'm just working on making a series of them and working through how best to hang them and present them, which actually is something I sometimes find more challenging than designing and making the pieces. Working out how something's actually going to stand and hang on a wall and things like that. That's what I'm working on at the moment here in this little tiny room filled with boxes. But yeah, this is my space at the moment in an apartment on the 5th floor, and this is all of my glass. So you can actually see there's literally glass as far as the eye can see behind me, and packing materials. So it's relatively limited in what I can do, and I think it's a good time to take things out and look at them, and maybe make plans for when things open up a little bit more, or maybe make plans for how to use other materials to better make things come together.
And what would you say are the main challenges in your practice?
For me, on a constant basis, the main challenges with making glass sculptures are the cost of making glass sculptures, because it is expensive. It's expensive to make glass. I don't have my own studio, so I rent studios when I make glass, and I rent people to help me make glass if it's a bigger piece. And also in the same vein as that, for me, it's access to studios. So I moved from Ireland to Denmark purely because it's very difficult to make hot glass in Ireland. We have only got 4 or 5 studios in all of Ireland, north and south, and they're private studios, so they're not people who necessarily want to rent out their studio space. So Denmark has allowed me to, I've both worked for other people here, which has given me access to studios, and also rent a lot of fun in different people's studios. But just balancing that development time and also the financial cost of things, I think, is something which is a constant for most glass artists. I always tell people to stay at school for as long as they possibly can, because you have access to equipment and studios and mentors, which really, when you leave, you suddenly realize how important it is.
We're currently accepting applications for this year's edition of the Biennale. As a participant in the previous edition, could you tell us why you joined the Biennale of Glass in Bulgaria and what was your experience?
I've been very, very happy to be part of both editions of the International Glass Biennale in Bulgaria. I think it's really important for countries that maybe are developing their glass practices to have the opportunity to showcase to the world both what is possible within the country, what has been happening within the country, and also to invite other people and other countries to become involved in that. There's a huge glass family worldwide, and I think that this is one of the best ways that people have to access that glass family, both from Bulgaria to the rest of the world and from other places in the world to Bulgaria. So for me, it's been an incredibly positive experience to have my pieces displayed in the exhibitions, and also have a piece which I donated, which has been displayed multiple times since then, which has been really, really wonderful to see, because oftentimes you donate a piece and maybe it disappears for a very long period of time and you don't see it, but actually the organizers and the team at IGB have been good enough to make sure that pieces that they have had donated have come out multiple times and been shown in different spaces. And that's for me, that's a huge, huge bonus. So I think it's been a really positive experience for me. I will be applying again this year with something new, maybe some of these guys, if I get them done. And I just think that if you can apply, and if you're lucky enough to get in, and then if you have the opportunity to travel there, then any opportunity to meet other glass people is a positive opportunity. So yeah, it's been really good for me.
We're very glad. And lastly, in your opinion, why is it important to introduce the public to contemporary glass art, both generally and in Bulgaria specifically?
I think that Bulgaria, probably like quite a lot of other European countries in particular, has had a tradition for glass which stems from factory processes. So glass is a functional material. It hasn't gone beyond that for a lot of people. So I think it's really important for exhibitions and activities around exhibitions like the IGB Biennale to expose people to different aspects of that material. Glass has so many amazing qualities, and when we see those qualities being used in a more artistic way, in a sculptural way, that is one way that we can engage with people, and we can change their ideas about a material and their ideas about a possibility, and possibly influence or inspire someone to be involved in glass or in the glass process. So I think it's really important to bring those in smaller countries, and also really important in the world to actually have different materials to express different ideas and to engage with different social ideas in different ways. Glass is perfect for some things, and there are other ideas and processes which it just doesn't work for. But for me, I think, yeah, it's great if people can start to get beyond the idea that glass is only for functional design. It is for functional design. It works wonderfully for that, but it has so many possibilities outside of that. And the more that it's exposed, the further those go. I mean, it's been used in so many different digital technologies now, CNC printing and laser cutting and water jet cutting and everything that probably 15 years ago we would have said, well, that's not for glass. That's for the digital age. And now it's being used in glass. So yeah, I think it's really important that glass is brought out and that glass is seen at the forefront of art and as a material suitable for use in art for transferring ideas.